How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, to give you my thoughts on the MLB postseason. I know we really haven't covered it after the Yankees were eliminated, but I will give you my thoughts on what transpired throughout the other series and how we got to the World Series matchup that begins tomorrow between two heavyweights, the Blue Jays, the number one seeded Blue Jays in the American League, against the defending World Series champs, the LA Dodgers, which I think is going to be a fantastic series. I really do believe that. So we will get into all that, but I just kind of wanted to give you my thoughts because it's been a while since we kind of talked about baseball. Now, I don't want you to think the reason why I haven't covered the series is because the Yankees got eliminated. No, it's just how things happen. You know, life gets in the way and what have you. So, that's kind of why we haven't really talked about the other series. But I do want to because we had some very entertaining games. We had some very memorable moments in these playoffs. And it does remind you, because I know sometimes when it comes to baseball, it's a long season, and sometimes a lot of people, they're not going to tune in every single game. Now, I try to watch every pitch when it comes to the Yankees, obviously. But, for a lot of people, it's hard to tune in for a long season like that. But I think the playoffs, and I think especially this year, you're reminded that baseball can be special. And baseball, it's a sport that it continues to give you great moments. And we've seen plenty of those in these playoffs. In every round, pretty much. Every round you could look at, and there was a memorable moment. And we've seen the stars really show out, specifically with the two teams that are in the World Series this year. You look at what Shohei Ohtani did in the ALCS. You look at what Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the postseason that he's put together. I mean, the stars have showed up. And also you got the guys that have been there before, George Springer, who we'll get into in this episode as well. But, I mean, for the most part, every series been competitive. Every series has been competitive. You go to the division series, specifically the Tigers and the Mariners, that was a series that went back and forth. And I understand why the rule was put in place is because you want to, speed up the game and not have these games go deep, like 15, 16 innings. But what we saw between the Mariners and the Tigers, that deciding Game 5, that's good baseball. That's good baseball. And it came down to the 15th inning, and the Mariners were able to get the win and punch their ticket to the American League Championship Series. And it was just a fun game, and it just, every time you thought that it was going to go the other way, or you thought that the game was going to end earlier, clutch plays were made. Clutch pitches were made. And the Mariners, they ended up taking the game in 5 games. They win 3-2 in 15 innings. And it was thanks to Jorge Polanco, who had a very good postseason. He continued to get big hits for them, even in the series that they ended up losing to the Blue Jays in the championship series, but he got some big hits when needed. And he finished off his postseason 3 homers, 8 RBIs, only a 208 batting average, but he got big hits. He got big hits, and he got big hits in Game 1 of the championship series as well, to put them up. And I thought, when we get talking about the championship series now, the American League Championship Series, George Springer homers on the first pitch. Now, obviously, we know what happened, how the series transpired. I thought this series was going to be like the Blue Jays were going to just dominate the whole series. But then the Mariners, they put together a well-pitched game. They only give up that 1 run. They got the win, 3-1, and, this series went back and forth. This American League Championship Series was very entertaining. You had 2 very good offensive teams, got good pitchers, on both sides. It was evenly matched, but unfortunately someone had to go home, and it was the Seattle Mariners. And I thought, taking a look at what happened in the NLCS, because you had the Brewers, it looked like they were going to sweep the Cubs, but then the Cubs, they rally, they push it to a Game 5. Brewers are able to take it. I thought the Brewers were going to give the Dodgers a hard time. And the Brewers' best chance was in Game 1. You had a weird play. Max Muncy hits that ball off the wall, and everybody kind of froze on the base pass. The Dodgers had the bases loaded. And the Brewers are able to get out of it without giving up a run. They're able to get a double play out of it. Get the runner out at home, and then you get the runner out at third. And they had their chance. Blake Snell, he pitched a really good game. And then the Brewers started to get to Roki Sasaki, who's been an unsung hero in these playoffs for the Dodgers. So then the Dodgers have to go to Blake Trinan, and he's able to get out of it. He's able to get out of the jam. And the Dodgers win Game 1. Yoshinobu Yamamoto pitches a complete game in Game 2. Tyler Glasnow pitches a good game in Game 3. And then Shohei Ohtani has probably the best single playoff performance you're ever going to see in baseball history. He hits 3 home runs, and he pitches 6 shutout innings. When are you ever going to see that from another player? He's on another planet. And he really is a treat to watch. You know, I mean, that was his signature moment right there as a Dodger. You know, even last year, of course, you know, he hit the postseason. He hit the home run in his postseason debut. But, you know, he really didn't do anything in the World Series, partly last year, partly because he was hurt. But, listen, I mean, the fact that he's pitching now, I mean, you're reminded of what this guy can do. You do both things at a high level. Pitch and hit. Now, I don't think it's going to last. You know, it's not going to last the rest of his career. At some point, he's just going to transition to just being a DH. I mean, maybe. You know, it's not confirmed, but that's kind of what we're all assuming. But, I mean, what a performance by him. You know, Dodgers sweep the Brewers. I thought that was going to be more... I thought the Brewers were going to get a game or two. I mean, they had the best record in the National League. They played really well against the Dodgers. I'm pretty sure they swept the season series against the Dodgers. But the Dodgers pitching really shut them down. And that's why this Dodgers team is well equipped to repeat as champions. I mean, last year, if the Yankees ended up winning Game 5, I don't think the Dodgers had a starter listed for Game 6. You know, they were running out Jack Flaherty, Walker Buehler, and Yamamoto. They didn't have Glasnow. They didn't even have Kershaw. You know, obviously Snell wasn't with them. They are well equipped. And for the Blue Jays, I got to say this about the Blue Jays, and it's something that they have continued to do. First they continue to silence the critics, but they have dealt with adversity in these playoffs. Even in the Yankee series, and the reason why I say that is because they were up 2-0. They smoked the Yankees the first 2 games. It looked like they were on their way to winning Game 3, and then the Yankees came back. They overcame, a 6-run deficit. Aaron Judge hits that big home run. Yankees end up winning the game 9-6. And then all of a sudden you're thinking, are the Blue Jays going to end up blowing this? But no, they didn't blink. They end up winning the following game, despite a bullpen game. They shut down the Yankees' offense. They win that game. They move on to the championship series. And they got smacked around in Game 2 against the Mariners. They got smacked around pretty good. And their offense got shut down, like I said, in Game 1 after the Springer home run. They lose 10-3 in Game 2. But guess what? They didn't blink. They win 13-4 the following game. They win 8-2 in Game 4. And then all of a sudden it looks like they're going to win this close, tight game in Game 5. In the bottom of the 8th inning, Cal Raleigh hits a big home run to tie it, and then Eugenio Suarez hits a grand slam to right field the opposite way, and the Mariners win that game, and they're down 3-2 going back to Toronto. But guess what? Didn't matter. They took Game 6, and they're down 3-1 late. Julio Rodriguez, he led off the game. Actually, no. No, Josh Naylor had an RBI single in the first inning. But Julio did hit a home run. I think it was... When did Julio hit? I thought Julio had a home run as well. It might have been... Let's see. Because I know Julio did hit a home run, unless I'm thinking it was earlier in the series. So it must have been earlier in the series. But anyways, yeah, no, the Mariners, they scored right away. Well, Julio led off the game with a double, and then Naylor drove him in. Varsho tied the game in the bottom of the first inning. Oh yeah, here it is. Julio Rodriguez did homer in the top of the third, and then Cal Raleigh homered in the top of the fifth. So they were up 3-1. And then all of a sudden, a couple guys get on base for the Blue Jays in the bottom of the seventh inning, and here comes George Springer. George Springer, whatever you want to say about him, this guy is made for these kind of moments. He hits a 3-run homer. Hits a 3-run homer, gives the Blue Jays a 4-3 lead. Jeff Hoffman comes in throwing gas, closes it out, and the Blue Jays move on. They go to the World Series for the first time since the 90s, right? It's been a long time. But George Springer, I mean, again, just another moment that you could add to what is an incredible resume. You know, it goes back to his days with the Astros. I know there's some baggage that comes along with it, but you know what? He is one of the great postseason performers of this era, and he just continues to add to that. And he's going up against a team that he did beat in the World Series in 2017, and that is the Dodgers. Now, this is a bit of a different Dodgers team. Not a lot of the same players are over there, but just saying, though. So it is. It's going to be. It's going to be quite the series. It's going to be quite the series. It's got that David versus Goliath feel to it. I don't think the Dodgers are going to just come in as the favorite here and just roll over the Blue Jays. I don't think that's happening. See, and my dog agrees with that. I think the Blue Jays are going to give the Dodgers a hard time. Now, they did play over the summer, and the Dodgers won 2 out of 3. But this Blue Jays team is relentless. Like I said, this Blue Jays team has dealt with adversity. I mean, you could say the Dodgers did during the regular season with the injuries, but once they got healthy and you get to the playoffs, they are locked and loaded. They're ready to go. And they've shown that. Even when they won the pennant this past week. I mean, you would have thought they won a regular season game in April, the way they celebrated. Because they know that they got their eyes on the prize. They want to defend their title. They're ready. They want to do that. So I can't really complain about that. The Blue Jays, pop champagne, celebrate as hard as you want. You know why? Because you deserve it. It's been a long time. Fans have been waiting for it. They're excited. I mean, Vlad Jr., he was very emotional after the game. I mean, again, he deserves this moment. The way he's played in these playoffs. He's been unbelievable. But yeah, I do think that the Blue Jays, that they're going to be ready. And the other thing too is everybody. I mean, this is going to play a role. Definitely going to play a role. The Blue Jays have home field advantage in this series against the Dodgers. You know, like, I feel like some people might forget. Dodgers, they were playing in the wild card round. They were the 3 seed. Blue Jays had home field advantage. So I do think that is going to play a role in this series. Now, do I think the Dodgers are going to be fazed by the environment that they're going to step into at Rogers Center? No. They're going to be ready to go. They're not going to be intimidated. The Blue Jays, I don't think are going to be intimidated either. That's why I just think this is going to be a really good series. I just think that both teams, I mean, I think we're going to see some really good games. I think you're going to see some runs being scored, and the stars are going to show out. Now, I think the Dodgers obviously have the edge. I think they're more of the complete team. I think the Blue Jays are a complete team, but I think obviously when you stack these two teams up against each other, you give the advantage to the Dodgers because they have the experience and they have the championship pedigree. Now, I know the Blue Jays, they got George Springer, who's been there before, but they got Shohei Ohtani, they got Freddie Freeman, they got Mookie Betts, and again, these are the defending champs. But I do think you got to throw it out the window. This Blue Jays team, has a lot of grit. It's got a lot of fight. They battle. They foul off a ton of pitches. They make the pitchers work, and I think they're going to have to continue to do that in this series if they're going to want to have a chance. I don't really think they make a lot of mistakes when it comes to fielding the baseball. I know back in the Yankees series, some of the plays that they made kind of opened the door for the Yankees to come back in that Game 3, but for the most part, their defense is tight. So, I don't think you have to worry too much about that. They run the bases well. They are going to do their best in this series. The thing I do worry about, and I think that there's kind of a clear advantage when it comes to the Dodgers, is the pitching. I think the Blue Jays pitching has been solid when it needs to be, but you got to side with the Dodgers when it comes to their pitching staff and how their pitching has been. I loved seeing Max Scherzer go out there and pitch really well because obviously someone that grew up watching sports in the 2010s, seeing him do what he did, Max Scherzer going out there and pitching well against the Mariners in the championship series, and then also at the same time you had Aaron Rodgers and Joe Flacco dueling it out on Thursday Night Football. That was a good throwback, and that was a good moment for people that grew up watching sports in the 2010s. It was a good throwback to the childhood. But, yeah, and then looking at the Blue Jays, so Savage is going to be getting the ball in Game 1, pitched very well against the Yankees. Not as well against the Mariners, but then you got Kevin Gausman, who's pitched really well this year. I do worry about the starting pitching for the Blue Jays, and I just worry about their pitching in general going up against the Dodgers. Whereas the Dodgers, their pitching has been almost flawless. And as a Dodgers fan, you still got to worry about that bullpen, but I think you found the secret weapon in Roki Sasaki at the back end. And it helps when, you got Yamamoto and Blake Snell pitching deep into games and shortening the lanes that Dave Roberts has to figure out and who he can put in because, when you got Snell pitching 8 and Yamamoto pitching a complete game, you don't really need to use anybody. So that's kind of where I think this game, or this series rather, is going to be decided. Is the Blue Jays pitching against this Dodgers lineup? And how is the Blue Jays pitching? How is the Blue Jays hitting going to be against this Dodgers lineup? Is this Dodgers lineup going to be able to contain this high-powered offense? Now, I don't think it's as high-powered as the Dodgers offense when everything's clicking, but hey, the Blue Jays score a lot of runs. They have been a very good offense. They deserve to be in this spot. So I do think, having said what I just said, where there's an advantage, I think the series is going to go 7 games. I think it is. Like I said, I think the Blue Jays have done well when their backs are against the wall. And I think at times during the series they are going to have those moments. And I think they will respond. However, I think when it's all said and done, I think the Dodgers are going to defend their title. And I said that when I was still with GSMC. I said that. I said that I actually had them beating the Texas Rangers in the World Series. And actually, some people might call my bluff, but during one of my internships, I did this intern show, and it was back in 2022. And this was my World Series prediction at the time. In 2022, I said it was going to be Dodgers, Blue Jays. I don't remember who I picked to win, but 3 years ago, that was my prediction. So, hey, it just took 3 years, but here we are. Here's the prediction right here. Came to light. But yeah, it's going to be a really good series. I can't pick against the Dodgers. I'm sorry, I can't. And it's not Yankee bias. It's not Yankee bias. I just feel like the Dodgers are the better team. But you know what? I said this earlier in the episode. If there's one thing the Blue Jays have done, is they continue to silence the critics. been a lot of people that have doubted them. I mean, I didn't even have this team making the playoffs this year because of just how they've underperformed over the last several years. That's why I kind of was off the Blue Jays because I made that prediction in 2022. They just missed the playoffs in 2021. That's, when they had, Teoscar Hernandez, Marcus Semien. I didn't even talk about Teoscar Hernandez. He's going to be facing his former team in this World Series. And if it wasn't the Blue Jays and the Mariners moved on, he would have been facing them. And he played with them for a little bit. Obviously it doesn't matter now. They made it to the World Series, but Teoscar was a good player for the Blue Jays. He was a very good hitter. I know some conversations I've had with Blue Jays fans that I know he's not a very good fielder, and that's why they wouldn't take him back. Which, yeah, Teoscar has had some blunders, but he's also another guy that he turns it on in October. So I can't wait. It's gonna be a fun series, but yeah, both lineups, I suspect they're gonna do their thing. And I think we're in for a really good series. I do think that. I think this is something that can go back and forth. And then it's going to go to a Game 7. I do think that. I think it's going to go 7 games. So, if things don't look good for the Blue Jays, who are the underdog, take a look what happened in the Seattle series. Take a look what happened even in the Yankee series. They've dealt with adversity, and they've overcome it. Now, the Dodgers are a whole different animal. We understand that, but the Blue Jays are no slouch. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll try to recap the games. I'm going to be in Pittsburgh this weekend for the Sunday night game between the Packers and the Steelers, so really looking forward to that. But next week we will, talk about the first 2 games. I'll make sure to do a episode on that. And then obviously football sprinkled in. The NBA made its return, so I've been paying attention to that, of course. The Knicks got to win against the Heat. The Cavs, not the Heat, the Cavs yesterday had more of a bench that they were using. They didn't just trot out 7-8 guys. They were using, I think, up to about 11. So the third quarter was a little scary for Knicks fans, but they got the win. It was a good team win, and they start off the season on the right foot. And Victor Wembanyama was amazing last night, if you saw that. Not the best debut for Cooper Flagg, but he's obviously a rookie. He's only 18 years old. So there's going to be some growing pains there. Also, they're going to be on, as I'm recording this, 6 p.m. Eastern time, I believe. Very nice to see the Inside the NBA crew all together last night. Everything was the same. You would have thought that, which is exactly what it was, except with ESPN the ESPN logo. It's literally what they said. Inside the NBA, it's airing on ESPN, and everything is like it's on TNT. Even the music, which to me that was the biggest thing. As someone that's like, obviously I love the NFL. I love Major League Baseball. The NBA is, it's up there, but not. Those are the two. Those are my two. But there are a lot of things that I do like about the NBA, and Inside the NBA is one of them, and obviously the theme song. The TNT theme, it's one of my favorite themes in all of sports, honestly. So I was happy that that's still there. But it's so strange, though, because you'll hear that, and then all of a sudden when they send it over to Mike Breen, then all of a sudden it's all ESPN. So, and I just wish ESPN would go back to their old theme. The new theme it's okay, but the old theme is so iconic. I don't know why you needed to change it, but I digress. So that's pretty much it. Everybody make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video, to the channel. Make sure to follow us on the social media platforms in the description below, and wherever you get your podcasts, you can listen to us as well. Make sure to look up Infinite Sports, and you'll find us there. And as always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, signing off. Have a good one. Talk to you guys next time. Take care.